Can we all hear me?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I can hear you.
So today, our main mission here is to learn how we can authenticate this form. How can we design this form and how can we authenticate this form? That is what we're going to learn today. So, what are the things in which we see on this form? What are the pertinent things we see on this form? When I go and click on submit, it will tell me to enter something here. So let's say I enter one, I enter something like this here, I enter something like that here. The date of birth, I have to choose it, so I choose the date of birth. Over here, I come and enter this and that. It's weird. I have the ability to go and choose a picture. So I can go into my computer and select a picture that I like, open, and then I can see the picture pop up over here. I can select the program of study I want. And after doing all of these things, I can click on the save button. And when I click on save, you see it tells me here, please match the requested format. So it doesn't match the requested format. So it has to be plus 233. Then that's so I click. And the first name must contain only letters. So over here, I have to go and make sure my first name contains only letters. When I click here to, I'll change this one so that it doesn't tell me the error again. I'll click here and then my form was submit. So until I do everything correctly, my form is not going to what? Submit. Are we okay? So this allows me to showcase what I can do with my form and everything. Great. Let's write the code to do this. Over here, I have registration form. I have first name, last name, date of birth, age, phone number in Ghana format, address, picture, email, picture, email, and program of study for someone to register very quickly for us. Okay, so now I must design this. First thing, of course, I would go into my desktop. In my desktop, I would create a folder. So I'm in my desktop. I'll create a folder. I'll call this folder registration. Registration. I'll open registration. I'll right click and go to open in terminal. And then I'll type code space dot. And when I hit enter, it should open up the application for me in VS Code. So now I have my application in VS Code. In here, I'll create 3 folders. First folder, when I click here, it is index.html. Second folder is styles.css. Fourth folder is going to be script.js. So with that, I have created the 3 folders that I require to do the work in which I need to do. Now, I must code my HTML elements, give my application a structure. The first thing I'll do is type the basic structure of the HTML page. So here I have in my HTML, my index.html. I have my basic structure of the HTML page. Okay. In here, I'll give the title of my application. The title of my application is going to be registration.
Sir, how do you make the basic structure of the HTML come just like that?
I type HTML semicolon 5 and I press the tab button.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, so that handles that. That handles that. Now, in here, I'm going to change this and call it registration form. And then I'll save. In here, I'm going to start my registration form by designing the structure of my HTML application. So first I'll create a div. In that div, I'll call this div class container. In here, I'll create my H2. So I have registration form. Under it, I'll create my form tag. I'll give my form an ID of login form. And then in here, I'll create a div. I'll call my div class form group, form hyphen group. By the way, the form group and the form login and the container, they are just names I'm coming up with. Over here, I have label. This is a tag. And the label is for the first name of the person. And then in here, I'll type first name. Note the difference between the two. First name over here, it is going to be used by the system. So you can see there, I have no space in it. Over here, it is going to be seen by the user. So over here, I can have a space in it. I can leave spaces in it. In here, I'll have my input. Type. It's going to be text. ID is going to be first name. And then the user name of that thing, the name. The name is normally the address that the content of that thing would be saved in. I'm going to call it first name. And it's going to be a required field. And I'll do this. Now, the required button means that if someone doesn't type anything there, and I go and click on the submit button, it will not allow. So on my screen, when I go and click on open in live server and the application loads, this is what I have. I have a H2, I have a label, I have an input for the person to type. When I come here, I would see I have my H2, I have my label and an input for the person to type. But we can see that with what I have just shown you, the input for the person to type and everything, it is the CSS that is designing it that way. So we haven't gotten to the CSS section yet. I'm just dealing with the HTML. I'm dealing with the structure of my application. With that in mind, when I copy this and I paste it under here, because it's basically the same thing, but the only things which will change is over here, instead of me having first, I would have what? Last. So all of these things will go for me to have last over here. Of course, over here, I'm going to have last name. So I have this. So I'm done with the last name. Again, I'm going to copy this structure again. I'm going to bring it down here. And then over here, the last names can go away. So all the last names can go away. So that I'll have date of what? Birth, DOB. The date of birth is of data type date. So I'll put date here instead of text. Then in here, the person should see date of birth instead of DOB. So with this, I would come on the top here into my design. I would refresh and I will see that I have first name, last name, date of birth. It is in the date format because I chose the type over here to be what? Date. I can select this for it to be a date. In addition to the date, I'm going to create a span over here. The span is a type of div that works on one line. So if I want a div that will not work on multiple lines, but just one line, then I'll use a span. In here, I would create an ID and call this ID age display. Now, what the idea of this ID in which I want to do, or the thing I want to do with this is that if the person comes, and in here, sorry, I'll put in age semicolon. Good. So if the person comes to the screen here and that person chooses a particular date, once you choose a date, I will calculate your age and put it over here for you. So I've created a space that will hold the age that I would calculate for the person. Great. I will copy this one through again. I'll come under this. I'll paste it. And then in here, I would have a spot for phone number. So I have phone number. Now, in here, I'm going to change the name which I have here. And I'll type in phone number. And then I'll put a bracket here and type Ghana format. So the person knows that the phone number we want is of type Ghana format. Now, when I come here and I click here and I refresh my screen, I'll see that I have phone number in what? Ghana format. Yeah. Now in here, I will add tele over here so that the computer knows that this thing here is going to be of data type telephone number. Number one. Number two, over here, I'm going to add a pattern and tell the computer that I want this pattern. Now, you don't have to choose this, but this is called pre-match patterns. And the pre-match patterns allow you to give formats. For example, if you want the dollar format or you want CD and you want it in a particular format or dates, phone numbers, Ghana number, whatever number, there are formats you can pick. For the Ghana number, we are saying that the thing should start with +233, and then you can have digits, but the digits that will follow should be 9. So that is simply what this thing is saying. So it means if anybody types anything which is not of this format, the computer will tell it that's in the incorrect format, so that we can force everybody to type the same number format that we want. When I come back down here, I'll copy this one again. I'll paste it here. And then here, I will type in the address of the individual. Of course, the address of that person would appear here, and here I'll have address. Now, for address, I can't use input, because the person will type maybe a lot of things. So over here, I'll change it from input to text area. And then in here, I will put in the ID address and then the name address so that this can go away. For text area, there's no type. But I need to type the number of rows. So over here, I'll say row should be equal to, let's say, 3. Now, when I come to my screen, I'll see that I have address here, and in here I have 1, 2, 1, 2, 3 area spots for me. If I make it 4, the space will be bigger, like 4 rows for the person to type. So that takes care of that. After address, I have to ask the person to enter a picture. So in here, I would go for this one again. And then I'll come down here. In here, I would say, oh, when the person comes here, we should select a picture. So that in here, I would put in upload picture. Now, the file type for a picture is not text, it's going to be file. The moment I do that, it means that when I come to my page, so in my page again, and then I look at picture, I can see that for picture, it has the data type of file choose. So like I click here and then choose a particular file in which I want. You see, whenever I click here, and let's look at this critically. When I click here, you can see that all the files on my computer are showing. You can see that, right? But we want the person to pick only pictures. So we want the person to pick a JPEG or something like that. That means that when I am here for pictures, I should tell the computer that, first of all, the pictures is required. Okay, if you don't want it to be required, then you take it off. It means that someone can choose to enter a picture or choose to not enter a picture. That is fine. But here I would say accept is equal to image/star, which means that it will accept all the formats of image, JPG, PNG, GIF, all the formats of image. It will accept that. When I come here, I click here again, you realize that it will show me only the pictures. The other files I have, it's showing me folders because there could be pictures in those folders. And then over here, it is showing me JPEG and JPEG alone. Anything that is of a picture format, it will show you. So that when someone is looking for a PDF, you could use a PDF format, then only PDFs will show. So that the person, if he wants to look for something else, he would now come and click here and then choose all for all of them to come. That one, he knows that he is choosing what he wants. But for now, we take images, so only image files will appear over here. And that is how you get it to give it that effect. Also, when the person chooses a picture, I want to display the picture the person has chosen over here. So what I'm going to do is, inside where the picture, the grouping is, the same thing I did for the image, I'm going to create the same thing I did for the age. I'm going to create image with an image tag with an ID picture preview. And then I'm going to say SRC is going to be hash. So for now, I don't have any location for the image. And the alternative image is going to be your image. And then over here, I would say style and say display should be none so that it does not appear on the screen. This is what we call inline styling. So some of me using the CSS for, I just want a style for this one, so I can just put it here to affect that one and that one alone. But when I come here, you would realize that the picture image thing I did is not showing. If I remove this style from there, if I remove it from there, then when I come here into the design, I would see your image over here. But until the person clicks on the image he or she likes, I don't want the image to show. So once you click on the image you like, then the image in which you prefer would show. I have to do a block for email. So I'll click this. I'll click here. I'll click in here. And then in here, I would change all the information here to email. Oh, for email, I don't need a text area. I need an input. So let me pick an input. This could go away. So it turns into email. And over here, I'll have email, the capital E. And then in here, I'll have email. And then over here, I'll delete this. I will delete that. For emails, there's nothing like accept image, so this would go away. So that in here and in here, I can type email. So on my screen now, when I come here and I refresh, over here, it gives me the ability to type only emails. You can see that when I click in, I can see email here, email here, email here. So it is working. It is telling the computer that that place only accepts what? Emails. Finally, or the last but one thing, I need to do the groupings of what program the person will be doing. So I'll click here. I need a label. So over here, I'll click the label and call it program. And then over here, I'll call it program of study, so that it is capital letters. Then it is not going to be an input, but rather a select. So the drop-down menus is called select. And in this select, I'm going to give it an ID called program. And I'm going to give it a name property called program. It is also going to be required. Now for select, the things which drop down for the select, it is an option. So I'll say option. And the value for the first one is going to be nothing. So that here I can say select a program. Then the next selection, that is the next option I have, is going to have a value of MSC IT. And then in here, I'm going to put MSC IT over here. Over here, I'm going to have the option value MSc computer science. And over here, I'm going to have MSc computer science. So that on the screen, when you click here and you select this, the value is what is selected. Do you understand? So this is just showing, but the value will also be MSEIT and so on and so forth. At the end of the day, everything in which you have done, when the person is done using everything, he or she must click on the button. And the button is going to be of type submit. And what will be displayed on the button is submit. So that when I come to the screen, I'll have something which looks like this. So I am done with the HTML of my application. Now I must move to the CSS. I must design it. My CSS code is going to be in the CSS. It's going to be in the styles.css page. Now, when I come over here, in here, I'll click here, and then I would say link. The link tag is a tag that doesn't have a close. So I'll tell the computer link. And now what I'm linking is a resource that is of a style sheet. And where can you find this resource? We'll use href to find it as styles.cs. That means that any code I write in styles.cs now has been linked to my HTML page. When I click here, I can now type in my HTML code. So in here, I'll start with my body. I'll tell the computer I want the body to have a font family. 1 second, please. Sorry about that. I want to have a font family of Arial, comma, sans serif. I want it to have a background color. 1 second, please. Hello. Please, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So I have a background color of F4, F4, F4. I'll have a display of flex. And let's see what these things have done to our page now. You can see my background color is there. My font has changed. My display is flex, showing one on top of the other. I'm going to tell it that it will justify content in the center. I'm going to tell it to align items into the center. I'm going to also tell it that it should have the whole thing should appear on 100% of the viewing area of whatever screen that the person is using. So whatever the person is using, it will appear at 100% of the viewing area. And I want to remove all the margins in my application. So when I do that, I'll have this. I can see all the margins are gone. I have no margins. I have nothing worrying my application. It is 100% of the viewing area. I think because I am using like this, so that's 100% of the viewing area. And this is what I have. Flex center, that. I'll now go to the container. Now, remember, the container is over here. That means everything in which we have is inside the container. That's why I use the word container. So in here, I'm going to tell the computer that the background color for my container should be white. The container should have a padding of 20 pixels. The container should have a border radius of 8 pixels. The container should have um, a box shadow of 0, 2 pixels, 10 pixels, and it should have an RGB, that is red, green, and blue ultra of 0, 0, 0, 0.1. So now let's look at what that did to our screen. I've done an error somewhere. Let me see. What error have I done? Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's Arial, not Arial. Okay. So, but I think that shouldn't cause an error to the screen that much. Classify items. My body is here. That is there. I shouldn't have all the items going like that. Let me see. What is going on? 1 second. Let's see what I have done wrong. Oh, okay. Okay, I guess I know what I've done wrong now. So let me bring it back. It was there, but I had screwed up. So everything was fine. There was nothing wrong. So I have this. Great. Container. Over here, I spelled it wrong. That's why it was not working the way it should work for me. The correct spelling of it is container. Good. So now when I come back here, I refresh the screen. I should have it working for me in my container. Over here, I should save this. See? So my container is working now. You can see my container has a white background. If you scroll through, you see the grayish shadowing over here is all coming from the box shadow. And I want the width of my container should be 600 pixels. I didn't specify the height because it could go as big as it wants. But for the length of it, I want it to be 600 pixels. Now, I want the H1 we did at the top. The H2 we did at the top. I want it to text aligned to the center. I also want the dot form hyphen grouping which we have to be a margin bottom of 15 pixels. Now, before I click on save on this, look at this very well. We'll see all of them are there. The form grouping, we put every single form element we have in a form grouping. Remember, so if I tell it to push it, whatever between this form grouping and then this form grouping, give it a space of 15 pixels. That will allow us to have a space that we can utilize. So if I save this and I come back here, you see that each element will now have a space of 15 pixels between it, which makes it pop up and look nice. I also want to work at the label. So I want the label to separate from the texting which I have. So I'll say it should display as a block. So it will take up the entire space that it is in. And then it should have a margin from the bottom of 5 pixels so that it will separate from the text box that is there. So again, if I come here, I'll see that it is now a block. This one will come under, and then there will be a space from the bottom between the label and then the text box that the person can type. I'm going to tell the computer again that it should go and look for the input tag, the text area tag, and then the select tag. So anything that has these tags in it, it should make it a width of 100% of the container. The container that we have is 600 pixels. So if I make it 100% of the container, then it is going to touch the edges of the container like this. Then I'll come back here and tell it that, oh, it should have a padding of 8 pixels all around. 8 pixels all around means that in here, when I click to type, there will be a space on the top, on the side, and on the bottom of what I am typing. So you can see that now it has blocked up and it has become a bit bigger for us to type in, and it looks a bit nicer. We should have a margin from the top of 5 pixels. We should have a border of 1 pixel thick, solid, and of color gray. And then we should have a border radius of 4 pixels. This will allow our box to be a bit lighter. It's not all that bright. You see that it is curved on the sides. It looks curved over here. The border radius will curve here for us. The border radius is also what curves here for us. So it looks a bit nicer on us. We want to also focus on the button. The button will have most of these parameters we did. So the button is going to have a width of 100, this of 10. It is going to have a background color of green. So hashtag 28A745. And then we are going to have its color. So the color of writings that will be on would be white. And then we are going to have the border radius is going to be for the border. We don't need a border. So we are going to say the border should be none. And then finally over here, we're going to say the cursor should act as a pointer. So that whenever we come onto the design here and we refresh, we can see that when we bring our cursor here, it turns into a pointer. In here again, I'm going to say where the button is. Whenever I hover on it, so semicolon hover, then we should have a background color of hashtag 211, hashtag 218838. So a deeper shade of the green we have. So that whenever I bring my cursor close to this, it will go to a deeper shade and the person will think I am coming to click or something, and it gives them that effect. Also, the IMG we did that we made to disappear would say it should have a width of 100 pixels. It should have a height of 100 pixels. It should have a border radius, border hyphen radius of 8 pixels. And then it should have a margin from the top of 10 pixels. And then the display should display as a block. So with that, then we have completed the design of our application. Now we focus on the interactivity of our application. We focus on the interactivity of our application. Unfortunately, I have to do something right now, so I have to leave. What I will do is I would complete the interactivity of the application and then add it to this video I sent to you when I'm sending the video to you. It's something I have to do. I can't get off, so I will do that and then I'll send it to you. Is that okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay. Please have a good day. I would package everything and send it to you by the end of the day. Thank you for coming.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.